learn more about supporting online learner success, then you are in the right place. And I so appreciate seeing you and having you come and spend your lunch with us and to learn more about this this important topic. My partner in crime here today is Erin Maney, and as we go, she's going to be popping links in the chat, and you don't have to worry really about anything that I show because all of the links are on this page. And so you'll be able to return to anything, but we're happy to post the links in the chat as well, just so that you can have them. As you're joining, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and where you're from, that would help us to know you better and understand who is joining us for this particular session. So Erin, have you put the link to this page in the chat yet?
I'm doing that right now.
Great, thank you. There are a lot of things that to know about supporting online learner success in online teaching and learning environments. And this page that Erin just posted in the chat is sort of a collection of curated information and resources to help you understand, both from the learner perspective as well as from the instructor perspective, what they need to do in order to support their own success and what you can do to support their success as well. Well, before I get started, I did want to mention, in case you don't know who I am, that I'm Alexandra Pickett. I'm the Director of Online Teaching at SUNY Online, and I also have been an online instructor for many years at UAlbany, an adjunct in the education department, teaching fully online, and my course is Introduction to Online Teaching, and I'll show you some examples from that course and things that I've developed and created along the way. Erin, you want to introduce yourself just so folks know who you are?
Sure, thank you. So Erin Maney, also working with SUNY Online, and I manage the communications and community engagement activities. So I get to showcase all the great work that everyone is doing by coordinating webinars and other recognition programs that we have here.
Awesome. So you can navigate to this page that Erin has posted in the website at some point, just to dive deeper into any of the things we talk about. If you have any questions along the way, go ahead and pop them in the chat, and at the end we will go through and see what questions you might have. But in general, I think some things that I've highlighted here for you to keep in mind about supporting online learner success in any kind of remote, blended, hybrid, or fully online course, is to make sure to be accessible to your learners. If you've been teaching online at all, you probably know this. That's super important for students to know that you are available, and for you to help them to understand that you are accessible to them in a variety of ways. Another thing that I highlighted here was to encourage learners to be reflective of their own learning and to facilitate and guide that in some ways. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a sec. You want to, of course, maintain and communicate high expectations to your learners. It is amazing how they will rise to your expectations, and the clearer that you can be about what those expectations are, the better it's going to be, the more it'll help learners to understand how to meet those expectations, what you expect and how to meet those. I think, recognizing and acknowledging learner success is an important part of humanizing the environment, making yourself feel like a real person to them, that you know them, that you care about them, that you see them. And so supporting them to develop the strategies and the the mindsets, that you believe in them and that they believe in themselves, can go really a very long way. And there's specific things that you can do actually to support that we'll be talking about more today. And then sort of along with that, I wanted to highlight and mention that it's important that that you reassure your learners, and that you demonstrate that in the design of your course, as well as in how you actually interact and engage with them in the course. So all of that is, I think, cool and interesting. I think to kind of highlight some of the things I mentioned, I have this resource about communicating with your students and some specific strategies that you can use, and especially in remote or emergency teaching situations, or even now where we're still dealing with sort of the reality of COVID. It's very important to check in with your students to understand what their experiences are and to not make any assumptions. Promoting regular and substantive interaction is now a legal requirement. I do a whole presentation on RSI, the new Department of Education federal regulation on regular and substantive interaction, but making sure that your learners know how to get a hold of you and what your expectations are around that, and when and how and all of that is super important. And you letting them know and telling them and having them be able to find that easily is very, very important, to find that information easily. I think, the reason why, there's several reasons why, but one of them is at the start of any course, you want to develop a sense of trust and a sense of online class community, and that kind of making yourself accessible is a super important part of that. I mentioned humanizing yourself, and there's several ways of demonstrating that, making sure that your students know that you care about their success and that you care about them is important. One of the ways I demonstrate that is at the end of a course, I ask my students to give advice to my future students. And so I just use a simple Padlet. This is a freely available tool, and you can actually embed this Padlet in your learning management system, so they don't have to actually exit the LMS in order to see it or interact with it. But it's a way that I can demonstrate, to my current learners that I see them and I care about them and I value their advice and their experiences, and then I can share that with future students to demonstrate similarly that I am that I care about their success. I also keep a blog in terms of it's a model for my learners to demonstrate reflective practice, metacognitive journaling. I do this alongside as I teach the course, and the students actually do the same. And this particular post is one that I share with students at the beginning of the class, and I really want them to know and to understand that I care about them and their success and how I can help them be more successful. And so I'm not saying that you have to give your students a love letter. I'm just showing you how I happen to do it. The theory behind all of this that I want to give you a little bit of, and that we're actually going to look at more practical examples of in a sec, is self-regulated learning strategies. And these are strategies used by learners to help them be successful. These are things that we have observed in learners that successful learners employ. And so they're things like forethought, which involves goal setting and planning, performance and self-observation, which includes how you organize your materials, how you structure your learning environment, help seeking and self-monitoring, and record keeping. And then self-reflection is a piece of this as well. And so looking, at how you, how you think about what you're learning, how you are judging yourself about your learning, and how you are reacting to those things. So I wanted to give you a little bit of the underlying theory, not to dive too deeply into it, but there's a lot of research around this area, not just in face-to-face instruction, but also developing in online teaching and learning. Developing these strategies is essential for online learner success, and we know that successful online students have developed these strategies, as well as a strong sense of learner self-efficacy. That's the belief in themselves that they can succeed, and that learners need to develop these skills and this sense, but there are things that faculty can do in how they design and teach their online courses to support the development in their the development of the strategies in the learners in their classes. And so I want you to think about it from both perspectives, both what learners need to do, but also what you can do to support their development of these strategies. And that's really what this, this session is all about today. So let's go to the first one, which is about goal setting and planning. And I've highlighted a couple of things that I wanted to point out to you about, what represents success from the learner perspective, as well as what you can do. So these are the strategies here that learners can demonstrate if they are, able to do this particular strategy for goal setting and planning. And then there are some ideas that I have here of what you might be able to do to help learners not procrastinate, or to set goals and to plan, which is what those who are having some challenges with this particular strategy exhibit. One of the things that I use is a social bookmarking tool. So no, actually, the first thing that I wanted to show you was this, which was this tool called Remind. If anyone's using Remind that's in the room, it would be cool if you would, just mention it in the chat, just so that we can see who, if anyone, is using this particular tool. This is a tool that you can use to set up reminders for your students, and it'll send text messages, so you can set them up in advance, and then it'll automatically send based on your course calendar, for example. So if you want to remind them that there's a particular, something going on in the media, or that there's something going on in the course that you want to remind them of, this is a nice tool that you could implement to kind of send out those reminders. So a couple of the other strategies were to create a tip of the day to support some of these strategies. So reminding them to log in daily, to make sure to coordinate when they're doing their online and offline work based on the due dates of the different activities that might be going on in your class, reminding them how to get resolution to any technical problems, reminding them about course calendar activities, and then making sure that you are helping them with their time management, and with those goal setting strategies that you want them to, that you're trying to support them to develop. All right, let's go on to the next one, which is organizing and transforming instructional materials. So this is the one that where I use the social bookmarking tool. There are a couple of tools that are out there currently that you can use. And one of them is Zotero for bookmarking. Another one is called Hypothesis. If you've used any of these tools, it'd be cool to have you pop something in the chat about them, any ideas or recommendations about how you use them. The one that I use is called Digo. And you might have noticed that on this web page, I have things highlighted. That I'm using Digo actually in order to do that. And if you see this little toolbar up here, it says highlight, bookmark, sticky note. Right here, it's a little plugin that I can fire up, or actually I can also eliminate it. If I get rid of it, those highlights will go away. And I'm reloading the page so you can see. And then if I fire it back up, they will come back. And so, and I was in organizing materials. There they are. So, so I'm actually using that tool right now, but this is a tool that I use to organize materials that I use in my course outside of the learning management system. So I, for example, have a page set up just for my class where I post things that I post within the class, but I want them to have access to these materials when the course ends. So when the course ends, they will lose their access to the course. So all that stuff has been, it's kind of locked in the learning management system. So I put links to resources here so that they can have access to them beyond the end of the course. I also ask them to do that. And so every student I've ever had is a member of this group, and they can continue, to interact with me and with others in the class, both those that have been in their own class and as well as other past students and other future students. This is a group that continues to grow and continues to add resources to this group. I explain a little bit about how I use Digo in my blog, and I share this with my students so that they know and understand what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, and why I want and need them to do it also. And then I have another resource here that I've posted that's more of like a recipe, so that if you're interested in doing something similar with this tool or with some other similar tool, you can understand more and better about how I use the tool. And so all of this was in support of organizing and transforming instructional materials. And so this is what students can do. In some ways, there's a lot of strategies involved in this particular strategy, and there's a bunch of things that an instructor can do, to support the development of helping students to learn how to organize their materials. All right, so let's. Is there anything else I wanted to tell you? So, taking notes and keeping things and organizing things, that really is the spirit behind my use of Digo, just, sort of to cap that, that thought. And that's really what this particular strategy is about. All right, let's go to the next.
Alex, while you're navigating, can we ask a question about some of those tools?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there was a great question about the accessibility of those. And I know some of them on their own websites will have their specific accessibility information. Just curious if you know anything about whether or not those tools are accessible.
So I don't specifically know. I'd have to go and look in the tool to see what their accessibility statement is. If someone, who's in the room right now knows anything about any of those tools, that would be that would be good to know, just so that you can share what you know about that. But it is a very good question, and something that as you experiment and as you play around with some of these tools, that you keep that in mind, and that you think about alternatives, not relying just on one thing, to do one thing, so that there are multiple ways for learners to access and engage, either the activities or the materials that you are that you're doing. Digo, for example, I don't really know as much about the other tools, but Digo has a lot of features, that, some of which I don't even use. I use it to highlight things on public pages. You can also leave little sticky notes, either attached to the highlight or just free floating. And then, as I mentioned, it creates like a repository of bookmarks, right? So this is all of the bookmarks and some annotations associated with that from people who have been in my class and who have shared, um, the bookmark with this particular group using this tool. So it builds a collaborative annotated bibliography for the class. And this is just a web page with a bunch of links on it, that has been collaboratively generated by everyone in the class. You can then take this group and the links in this group and generate a widget that you can embed in your course so that it can be accessed through the course. It's like a link roll, and you can base the link roll either on links or on tags. So if you consistently use a particular tag, you can generate a link roll just on that tag, and then strategically use that, in your course, for example, so that you are continuously collecting and sharing current information. So that will automatically show the latest links that have been shared to the particular group, to a particular group or with a particular tag. So Digo is kind of a really powerful tool that for me is a little bit of it helps me with efficiency in terms of making content fresh in my course, as well as collaborating, as well as providing feedback through the different stickies and highlighting features that it has. So whether or not all of those features are equally accessible, I'm not entirely sure, but I guess my main point is that I do those things in multiple ways. So it's not just relying on one way to achieve, those various objectives. All right, I hope that helped, and hope folks are posting their own experiences in the chat as well. Let's go on to structuring the learning environment. There's a couple of things that successful online learners do. They really think about going to class, when they're successful in online environments. They set aside like a psychological time as well as a physical space. They do things consistently and at consistent times, like they'll have it scheduled so that they know if today is Tuesday afternoon, this is what I'm supposed to be doing regarding the online class. They impose some boundaries and some rules on themselves, and they do that regularly and consistently, and they make sure that they're ready, and they make sure that their space is agreeable, amenable to the work that they're doing. So there's not a lot of noise going around, their phones off maybe so that they don't get interrupted. And they do these things in a consistent and regular way. So that's what successful online learners do. I think that, as an instructor, you can help students be ready and set themselves up for success by having them do readiness activities. There are a number of online readiness checklists that students can do. You could do one right in your own class, or you can leverage some that already exist. Your department or your institution may have something like that. Here's one that I like from PSU, and it just has a bunch of activities and demonstrate, it's some ideas that you can that you might be able to adapt if you're looking for a way to help students with this particular strategy. The other thing I wanted to share with you was this article that I found that I thought was particularly good. And it's a helpful thing for students to help them organize themselves, to find a place to work, make sure it's comfortable, organize things. So all of these things are really related to the self-regulated learning strategies that so far that we've been talking about. But it was a nice, concise article that I thought I'd share with you. All right, let's look at the next one. This is help seeking. And this strategy, I think, is very important for instructors not to make assumptions about learners. And we'll talk about first generation learners in this particular category as well. It's very important to be clear, and this is true regardless, but you want to be clear and explicit in your expectations. You want to make sure that learners feel comfortable asking questions and asking for clarification on anything related to the course and what you expect of them in terms of assignments or interaction, those kinds of things. You want to make sure that you have some sort of communication strategy for regular and substantive interaction where students can come to you in a regular way and ask for additional help or ask questions or ask for additional information on any feedback you've given them. You want to give them permission to help each other, make sure that they know how to get tech help. And I mentioned the first generation student and not making assumptions. I think this holds true. I mean, this is true about any of your students, to try not to make assumptions. I think many of us during the emergency pivot to online experienced really dramatically firsthand what making assumptions can result in. And it's not intentional, but one can be intentional about questioning whether or not one has an assumption, or trying to really think through from learners' perspectives what their experiences might be, and to just put some thinking into that. I'm highlighting this particular resource that is specific to first gen students to make sure that you have an awareness of some of the complexities and the issues faced by first generation students. And you may have experienced this in whatever type of instruction you do, whether it's online or face to face. But I think it bears some focus and some thinking, especially when you are moving online, where some of these things might be amplified. So first gen students have a tendency not to ask for help, in part because they don't know perhaps how or when or to whom it's acceptable or appropriate to ask. It might also be that they just feel a bit of hesitancy to expose that they don't know something. And so I think that's really important to think about. And of course, making sure that the other the other piece online, I think that gets amplified is the sense of isolation, and first gen students are already feeling some of that because they feel a bit of other, that they are, not as academically prepared, that they may not know everything that they need to know, that they don't have as much money perhaps as some of their peers. And so all of these things go into them perhaps not availing themselves of the resources or of asking simple questions. So giving learners in your course, paying attention to how you give them permission to help each other and to ask questions will help all of the learners in the course, not just the first gen ones, but especially them. The academic challenges, I talked a little bit about that. I talked a little bit about the socioeconomic challenges and the social challenges. So I thought this was a good overview of some of the main issues faced by first gen. All right, so the next area was self-monitoring and record keeping. And so there's a number of things that successful online learners do. They'll check the grade book, they check with their instructor regularly, they monitor things. They're the ones who will be asking questions about why something appears a particular way in the grade book. They will take extra precautions. They will compare themselves with their classmates to make sure that they are performing well. They will track things. They'll make sure to view and review expectations and due dates and any examples you might post. And of course, they're going to be super interested in any feedback that they get, and no doubt have questions about that feedback to help them clarify in their mind and make sure they're meeting your expectations. So those are the successful online learners that do all of that and do that well and consistently. What an instructor can do to help is to make sure that the learners know and understand how to access the grade book, that they make suggestions about using the tools in the course to monitor progress, to create really clear and thorough expectations and instructions, to create models of exemplary work. There's pluses and minuses to that, but you'll have to decide and pick and choose, to make sure that students understand what you're looking for. The one I highlighted here is to create rubrics. And so I wanted to show you my discussion grading rubric, just so that you can see a rubric will be a tool that is that helps you to be more subjective, helps students to understand more subjectively what is being asked and required of them, and they can really use it, depending on how it's set up, to manage how they complete the various assignments, for which I would recommend having rubrics for all your assignments. And I just wanted to show you an example of mine. I'm no way saying to use this or to do things exactly the way that I do them. You have to make those kinds of decisions for yourself, but I wanted to give you an example of my discussion rubric. I also wanted to share with you some information about rubrics in general. So things, there's a bunch of resources here on this page about creating rubrics. And so I wanted to point that out and give you the link to that. So if you're interested in creating rubrics, here are some additional resources to help you, make decisions about how you set up your various rubrics. All right, let's go on to the next one, which is on self-reflection. And so, if successful online students are leveraging your self-tests or any checklists or any rubrics that you design into your course, they will use those kinds of self-reflection strategies to help them think about what they're learning and what is helping or hindering their learning, and they'll make adjustments based on based on that sort of metacognitive reflection. So they are doing this, organically, or they've been taught to do those things. For students for whom this is a developing strategy, an instructor can actually build metacognitive reflection activities into the design of their course. And so helping students to think about, who they are as a learner, how they know they're learning, what is helping and hindering their learning, helping them to be conscious of that, to actually reflect on that, and to notice things about themselves and their learning will help them to develop this this strategy. So I have a couple of resources to share with you to kind of dive deeper into this. And this is a T for Teaching podcast that our friend John Kane at Aaron, where's he at? Oneonta, that he produces. And this is Judith Littlejohn from Genesee Community College. This is an interview with her about the Metacognitive Cafe that she has developed as a strategy in her online instruction. So I thought that was a really nice sort of introduction into how to do this. I also have some information on some things that I do in my own instruction. I have all my students blog, and I do it as well during the course. And so I actually share this with my students because, I'm asking them to blog and they often want to know why. And so I explain it to them. And then if you're interested in incorporating either blogging or any kind of cognitive reflection activities or journaling into your own instruction, I have this recipe card of what to do and why to do it and how to do it, and some resources around doing it if you actually want to do a blog, for example. And in this, I also have a bunch of the prompts that I use for students to get them to think about their learning and how they're applying it, and so forth. So there's a ton of stuff here if you're interested in exploring this any further. All right, so let's look at self-efficacy. We talked a little bit about that, and this is the notion, and learners who who have this can demonstrate this well and are successful in online teaching and learning environments because they believe, they have a sense of themselves that and a belief in themselves that they can succeed. And not everybody comes in and having that confidence. And so these are sort of the strategies and the attitudes that successful online learners have. But what an instructor can do to support that in an online environment, there's a variety of things. And I've highlighted a couple. One is modeling behaviors, and that can happen in the design of the course as well as in how it's facilitated. So starting every written interaction by directing it to a specific student, if you are, and naming the student, making sure that things are clear to the students, like how you want to be addressed, asking them how they want to be addressed, and so asking them about their preferred names and pronouns might come in there. You also want to demonstrate and encourage learners to develop the ability to troubleshoot their own technical problems and give them permission to help each other, as I said earlier. And again, clear instructions are always, really paramount in this strategy. I wanted to highlight this tool. This is in this particular category. It often comes up with instructors and instructional designers, how to estimate workload. And this speaks, to this particular category about self-efficacy, really understanding what, is, you know, what are the limits and what is the workload that's required. And it's important that they understand that and feel that they can be competent and successful in completing what you have laid out for them in the course. But it's also really important that you know what you're asking of them, so that you're not building a course and a half, for example, that you're actually really attending to your objectives, you're attending to the activities that map to those objectives, and that you have a plan for providing feedback and assessment on those activities, interactions, and collaborations. And so I wanted to, share this tool. I think it's particularly good. This is the workload estimator 2 from from WFU University. There's an earlier version of this. I like this one because it has other assignments here, so that you can, if you have something that's not, written or discussion or whatever, there's a way for you to calculate that in. So I think it's a particularly helpful tool, both for faculty and instructional designers who are looking to try and really understand the workload issue. Let's go on to goal orientation here. So successful online learners are planning, are managing their time, are make up questions in preparation for assessments or tests, or so they'll think, what are some questions that I might be asked on this topic, and what's my response to them. So they're kind of like quizzing themselves. They use tools, they use technology, they practice over and over again, they ask for help, they check their progress, they look back to see how they did, they use feedback to improve. These are all strategies and things that successful online learners would do. So a lot of those things you find in, if you've heard the term growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset. And so I posted here a couple of resources that help explain from a student perspective how they can develop a growth mindset. And then, from the flip side, there's a number of things that faculty can do to help and support, learners to develop, positive online learner goal orientation, which is this particular self-regulated learning strategy. Let me see what the resources are here. So I like this infographic that I found, and a lot of the growth and fixed mindset literature and information comes out of K-12, but there's a lot that is adaptable or intended for higher education audiences as well. And so as an instructor, you might want to think how you give praise. And you want to think about using some differentiated instructional approaches. See if there might be an opportunity to gamify anything in your course. Focus on the challenge and the value of being challenged and overcoming challenges and obstacles. You want to develop your art of getting learners to think more deeply and to expand on any responses that they might have. So the art of asking a question is something that you want to focus on and develop. You want to explain the purposes of skills and concepts. All of these things I think, instructors do, but this is really highlighting how to do it to support growth mindset. And so I invite you to think about how you might adapt any of these strategies in your own instruction. I have a number of resources here posted to support access, equity, inclusion, equity, and social justice. I have this in this category because you want to make sure that you know, students feel like they can, that they have confidence and that they can in fact succeed. And so by attending to some of these inclusion, access and equity activities, I think that's important. Now I lost my place. Here we go. Here. So let's, I think I went through everything, and we're
You
a little
did. We are a little over, but I did put the resources in the chat for those that had to leave. So I put the link to the website you've been sharing and where they can find the recording. There was a question on DIGO from Maureen, and I just wonder if you know a quick answer to this, since
Sure.
you've used it with students. And the question was about DIGO highlights. If you highlight on your screen, can your students see your highlight?
Yeah, well, it depends on if you share that with them or not. So highlights can be private. So I and my students can look at a web page, and it's sort of a note-taking technique. You can highlight things that you think are important. And I did that throughout this presentation. If you can see, these highlights are personal highlight by me, right? If I wanted to share them, I would make them, I would share them with my group, with the ETAP group, and then that way the everyone that is a member of that group would be able to see. So if you come to this page and you have DIGO, you're not going to be able to see my highlights. But if you were in my class group, and if I shared these highlights and sticky notes with you, then you would be able to see them, and I would be able to see theirs. So I actually use this tool to help me be more efficient when I'm looking at my students' blogs, for example, or anything that they do that's publicly posted on the web. I can let them know by highlighting things in their posts that only they and I can see, you know, using these tools. Was that Maureen from Orange?
Yes, right.
Hey, Maureen. All right, well,
Maureen's going to play with some tools.
Cool.
I'll make sure to turn on where you can unmute if you'd like. If anybody has to go, by all means, feel free. We're going to hang out here if there's any other questions that you might have for Alex. So you can unmute, or you can type in the chat.
Oh, you know, I wanted to mention, I'm going to share my screen again because I wanted to mention, let me see, I got to get over there. Well, first of all, I already did that one, right? But I wanted to mention joining as an online fellow if you haven't done that yet. So there's roles here. If you are not from SUNY, you can join as a friend of SUNY. If you are from SUNY, there's a number of roles that you can self-select into. And so this is just a way for us to be able to continue the conversation, and then you'll get some emails periodically about events like this one, and other, you know, when we have a new resource to share, we might send it out, you know, to folks who have joined in one of these groups. I also wanted to mention, and Erin, maybe you know what our next one is going to be.
Yeah, you can scroll down there. It's in December.
Oh, there it is.
There we go. It's the Interested in Teaching Online resource.
Okay, yeah, and that's going to be in December, on December 8th. And so if you're interested in that, you can come back and join us for that. And then the other thing I wanted to show you on this page, the same page, are all of the recordings and all of the resources associated with past, you know, the past webinars that we've done. So these are the ones that we've done this fall. And so if you missed any of them, or if you came and you wanted to revisit them, this is where the playlists live, and those are the ones we did in the spring and ongoing back. So if you're interested, you can come here and you know, take a look. Anything else, Erin, that I missed or that anyone wants to chat about?
Nothing in the chat.
Is there anything, you know, that anyone posted that was interesting in terms of, you know, things that they have been doing?
A couple people did use or do use Remind, and Padlet was a popular one as well. Yeah.
Okay. So I see Dr. Santos posted a question about, I need to get ready to teach. How can we have access to Alex's slides? So I didn't use any slides. I just, Erin posted the link to the webpage right after that, Dr. Santos. And, I have another, if you're prepping to teach, and your course is fully online or even blended, this is a good resource that we have, that I'm going to put it in the chat for you if you're still around. So it's kind of online course design step by step. If maybe that will help. Did somebody have a question? Maria, were you going to ask a question?
No, I was just going to make a comment. The information was so helpful. Especially, in the reflection area. I use a lot of reflection in the online class. And, I'm curious, as your results with the self-reflection, you feel that it's really engaging the students at the level that you would like it to?
Yeah, I think like anything in life, it's how you design it, So if you feel like you're not getting, and this holds true for everything, if you feel your discussions don't work well, if you feel like your reflection activities don't work well, I would go back to, thinking about why you're doing it, and what your objectives are. What are you hoping that comes out of that? And then look at what you're actually doing, or what are your prompts, or what are your questions, or what are your instructions, and really look at those well. Because if you're not getting what you were hoping for, well, I just would start there. It could be a combination of reasons why, but I would start there and really think about the purpose for it, and then how you're actually setting it up and implementing it. In that recipe that I gave for how I do the metacognitive journaling blogs, I actually have listed all of my discussion prompts. So you can go through that. And I'm not saying ask your students every single one of those questions, okay? And I'm not saying do it exactly the way that I do. I'm just suggesting that you take a look at that to see if you can adapt it for your own purposes. How your experience as an instructor, your discipline, the level of your students, all of that is contextual to you and is going to help you to make decisions about what you do, how you do it, why you do it. And so I'm demonstrating to you my why and my how and my actual things that I do, but you're going to have to think about that and see what or if any of it applies to you, your discipline, your learners. Mine are graduate students, for example, and they're education students, and most of them are pre-service K-12 educators, right? So that's a context that may not be your context at all, right? So honestly, my students hate the blogging activity initially. But it is in the process and the practice of it, and in my explanation and in my questions that I ask them, that they then deeply engage. And I love the blogs because that helps me to get to know them personally, really personally. And it helps me to understand where they are in terms of their understanding of what the key concepts are in that particular module. And I can help them. I can differentiate my instruction as a result, because I can help them move wherever they happen to be, because not everybody is at the same level, right? Wherever they happen to be, I can help them by understanding where they are. I can help ask a question that will move them incrementally forward in their understanding. And it's a process, right? Like part of my class is teaching my students how to learn and how to think and how to demonstrate their thinking and learning, to make it visible in an online environment to me and to others in the class, so that it's open for feedback. They're testing. When they say something, they have taken in a concept, and then they are articulating it back with their understanding and interpretation. And so everything that's uttered, and I mean uttered, written typically in an online asynchronous class, is an opportunity for a learner to open themselves up to feedback. And so I take that opportunity to ask them questions that will help them move further in their thinking. So I don't give them answers, I ask them questions. And I may know, I do know a lot about this, right? And sometimes the impulse is to share. You want to give them everything that you know. You want to give them your passion for your discipline. You want to help them succeed. And sometimes the impulse is to give them by telling them everything that you know. And the problem with that is that, if you are doing all the talking, you're the one doing all the learning. And they are the ones who have to say something so that they can expose where they are, so that you can ask another question to help them better understand where they have gaps in their thinking, and have them discover that, right? Because if you tell them, no, that's wrong, that doesn't help them, because they haven't actually realized that they're wrong. So what you want them to do is to really have that experience for themselves, where they, and this is the crux of learner-centered instruction, and it's not easy. It's very, very challenging to be on like that all the time, and be able to diagnose misperceptions and ask questions in a way that it's like an art to how you ask a question to help them dig deeper and dive deeper into their own assumptions, into their own misperceptions, into their own awareness. Opinions in my class, opinions are fine, but I actually don't care what they think about stuff. I want them to support their assertions with citations from the literature. I want them to be able to critically evaluate what the literature says about different topics. And I want them to come back and teach me and the others in the class what they've learned about that. And that way I can understand whether or not they actually understand. So yeah, anyway, that was
Thank
long.
you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Any thoughts, any questions? Thank you all so much for coming and hanging out and spending your whole lunchtime with me. I really appreciate that. Andrea, that's nice. Thank you. And Kristen and Douglas, thanks everyone for joining. Hope to see you at the next one.